Sunday, my father called me a disappointment. I was standing in their kitchen, holding a casserole dish I'd driven 40 minutes to bring. I remember the weight of it. Ceramic, heavy, still warm through the oven mitts. My mother had asked me to bring something for dinner, since you clearly have nothing going on, she'd said on the phone, and I'd made her favorite. Chicken and rice with that rosemary crust she used to make when I was little. I'd spent 2 hours on it. My father barely looked up from the football game. "Still renting that apartment?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He shook his head, just once. That single slow shake that I'd been watching my entire life, the one that meant I've already decided what kind of person you are. I was 31 years old. I was a UX researcher at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin. I had a 401k, a gym membership I actually used, and a savings account that would have made both of them cry if they'd known about it. But they didn't know about it, because I had learned, slowly and painfully over the years, that telling my parents anything real about my life gave them ammunition. They didn't use it maliciously, exactly. That's the part that took me the longest to understand. They genuinely believed they were helping. My mother came in from the back porch, screen door slapping behind her. She was still wearing her garden gloves. She looked at me, then at the casserole dish, then back at me with the expression she reserved for times when she felt she needed to address something. "Theresa," she said, "your cousin Marcus just got promoted, regional manager, and he's buying a house in Pflugerville." "That's great for Marcus," I said. "He's 28. "I know how old Marcus is, Mom." She pulled off one garden glove, then the other, slowly, the way she did when she was composing her next sentence. "I'm just saying, you're 31, you're still in that apartment. You work all these hours, and you have nothing to show for it." I set the casserole dish on the counter. I didn't say anything. I had gotten very good at not saying anything. Here is what I didn't tell her. I had a showing scheduled for Thursday, not for an apartment I was trying to rent, for a condo I was selling. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I moved to Austin at 24 with $11,000 in savings, a job offer, and a fierce, almost physical need to be 300 miles away from my parents' house in Beaumont. It wasn't that I hated them. It was that being near them made me smaller. I could feel it happening every time I visited, some contraction in my chest, some shrinking of the person I'd been building for myself in the city. Every time my mother said, "But what does that even mean, UX researcher? That doesn't sound like a real job," or my father looked at me the way he looked at the neighbor's dog when it got into the trash. I rented a 1-bedroom in South Austin for the first 3 years. Cheap carpet, 1 parking space, a bathroom that had clearly been renovated by someone who gave up halfway through. I loved it. It was mine. I was careful with money in a way that felt almost like a hobby. I meal prepped on Sundays. I took the bus when I could. I put 15% of every paycheck into a high-yield savings account, and I checked the balance every Friday morning before I did anything else, the way some people check the weather. By the time I was 27, I had enough for a down payment. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell most people, actually. I'd watched enough of my coworkers announce big life decisions to family members, who then turned those decisions into group projects. Suddenly, everyone had opinions about the neighborhood, the square footage, the timing, whether the market was right. I didn't want opinions. I wanted to make a clean decision by myself. I bought a 2-bedroom condo in East Austin, small, newer construction, HOA that wasn't insane. I put 20% down, got a rate I was happy with, and moved in on a Thursday in October. I still told my parents I was renting. Not because I planned to lie forever, just because I wasn't ready for what telling them the truth would unlock. I was right to wait. I understand that now. The calls started getting worse around the time I turned 30. Before, my mother's concern had been background noise, constant but ignorable, like a television left on in another room. After 30, it sharpened, focused. She started sending me articles, not texting them, actually printing them and mailing them. Articles about the housing market, about women who waited too long to get established, about the importance of community. Community meant Beaumont. It always meant be mut. Your grandmother wants to see you more, she told me on the phone one night. We all do. You've been so distant. I was there for Thanksgiving. And before that, I thought about it. Easter. Exactly. I was quiet. The Theresa, I've been thinking. She had a particular tone she used when she'd been building up to something. I recognized it immediately. The house has so much space. Your old room is just sitting there. If you move back, you could save so much. You wouldn't have that rent. You could really get ahead. Mom, just listen. Your father and I talked about it. We think it would be good for you. You could take some time, figure out your next steps. I have next steps. Well, you never share them with us. There it was. The real complaint underneath the concern. She didn't actually want me to move home to save money. She wanted me to move home because she wanted to see my life. She wanted to be in the room where decisions were made. She wanted in the specific way that my mother wanted things, to be necessary. I understood it. I didn't blame her for it. I also wasn't going to give it to her. I'm fine, I told her. My apartment is fine. My job is fine. Fine, she repeated, like it was a diagnosis. The visit in March was the one that changed things. I'd driven down for my uncle's retirement party. It was a Saturday, the kind of Texas spring day that feels like an apology for all the summer heat coming. Blue sky, cool breeze, azaleas doing what azaleas do. I pulled into my parents' driveway in a decent mood, which was a mistake. My mother met me on the porch before I even got to the door. She was holding a piece of paper. I made a list, she said. I looked at the paper. It was handwritten, which somehow made it worse. Numbered. 12 items. Fix the gutter on the east side of the house, clean out your old closet, help me organize the garage, clear the brush behind the fence. Mom, what is this? Things that need to be done, she said. Your father's back has been bad. We can't do all of it ourselves anymore. And if you're going to be living here, I'm not living here. You're not living here. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as preemptive patience. The Theresa, be realistic. You're paying rent on an apartment in a city that's gotten too expensive. You're working yourself to exhaustion. Don't think I can't hear it in your voice. You're alone. I'm not. You could come home. Save your money. Actually get ahead. Your room is right there. And you'd be helping us too. She held out the list. I did not take the list. I have a job, I said. I have my place. I'm not moving back. She set the list on the porch railing, deliberately, like she was leaving it there for me to pick up once I came to my senses. Your cousin Marcus has a house, she said. He built something for himself. Good for Marcus, I said, again. The party was fine. I smiled at my uncle and ate the brisket and talked to relatives I see twice a year. On the drive back up I-10, I made a decision I'd been circling for a while. I called my real estate agent from the car. Let's list the condo, I told her. I had been thinking about it for months. The Austin market had been volatile, but East Austin had held. My unit had appreciated nearly 40% since I bought it. I'd been tracking comparable sales out of what I told myself was just financial curiosity, and the number I kept landing on was one that made the back of my neck warm. I also had a reason to sell. About 6 months earlier, I'd started seriously looking at a small commercial property. Not to operate a business, to rent one. A cousin of a colleague was selling a converted Craftsman in a neighborhood just north of downtown that had been rezoned mixed use. It was a stretch financially. Not impossible, but a stretch. If I sold the condo, rolled the equity, and secured a small commercial loan, it was very doable. This is the part of the story that's hard to explain to people who didn't grow up in a household like mine. I wasn't doing any of this to prove something to my mother. I genuinely wasn't. I was doing it because I was good at it, because I found real satisfaction in the math of it, because building something that generated income independent of my salary felt like the most solid ground I'd ever stood on. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a small, quiet part of me that had been waiting for the moment she found out. My real estate agent, a sharp woman who had helped me buy the condo 4 years earlier, came back with a suggested listing price that made me sit down. We agreed to list on a Friday. I had 2 showings scheduled for the following week. I told no one in my family. My mother called on a Tuesday. I was at my desk eating a sad desk salad when my phone lit up with her name. "Helen Dawson called me today," she said, without hello. I knew the name. Helen Dawson was my mother's friend from church, and more relevantly, she lived 4 blocks from my condo. My stomach dropped about 2 inches. "Oh," I said. "She said there's a listing in that neighborhood. Sent me the Zillow link. Theresa." Her voice had shifted into something I hadn't heard before, not anger exactly, but a kind of triumphant hurt. She said the unit number is yours. I set down my fork. "She recognized it from when she helped me move in," I said, before my mother could say it first. Silence. "You own that apartment?" "Yes." "You told us you were renting?" "I told you I was in an apartment. I didn't specify. The Theresa." My mother's voice was very controlled. "You have been letting us worry about you for 4 years. Your father and I have been. We thought you were struggling." "We thought." She stopped. Started again. "Do you have any idea how that feels?" And here's the thing about that moment, the thing I've turned over many times since. I felt bad. I genuinely did. Not crushing guilt, but real human discomfort. I didn't enjoy what the next few seconds would do to her. "Mom," I said quietly, "I'm not struggling. I've never been struggling. I've been building something and I needed to do it without input." "Without input?" She repeated it like she was learning a new phrase in a foreign language. "Yes." Another silence. Then, "Why are you selling it?" "Because I found something better to do with the equity." "Something? What does that mean? What are you doing?" I thought about how to answer that. "Investing," I said finally. The silence that followed had a different quality. I could hear her working through it. My mother is not a stupid woman. She is stubborn, and she is controlling, and she spent most of my adult life underestimating me. But she is not stupid. I think she was doing some kind of math she didn't have all the numbers for yet. "Your father's going to want to talk to you," she said finally. I figured. My father called that evening. He was calmer about it than I expected, which is almost worse. My father's disappointment was always quieter than my mother's. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. "Because I knew what would happen," I said. "You would have worried. Mom would have had opinions about the neighborhood, the timing, whether I'd gotten a good rate. I would have spent the whole first year second-guessing a decision I was confident in because the people I love would have been nervous about it." He was quiet for a moment. "That's not fair to us." "Maybe not," I said. "But it was fair to me." He didn't have an answer for that. "What's this investment you're talking about?" I told him about the commercial property, the numbers. The tenant I was already in conversations with, a small accounting firm looking to expand, steady as you get. I walked him through the math the same way I'd walked myself through it a dozen times in the past year. When I finished, there was a long pause. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "About 8 months. Another pause. "You got that from your grandmother," he said finally. "She used to say the same thing, don't talk about the plan, just work the plan." I hadn't known that about my grandmother. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly. More like context. "I should have told you I owned the place," I said. "That part wasn't fair. I'm sorry for that." "But you're not sorry for the rest of it." "No," I said honestly. "I'm really not." He laughed. Just once, a short exhale. It was the closest we'd come to understanding each other in years. The condo closed 4 weeks later. I won't put an exact number on what I walked away with because it doesn't matter. The point is, it was enough, more than enough, to do what I needed to do. The commercial property closed 6 weeks after that. I drove down to Beaumont in July, the first visit after everything had come out. I brought chicken and rice again. My mother made sweet tea, and we sat on the back porch, and she showed me the new thing she was trying to grow in the garden, some kind of climbing vine that the woman at the nursery had told her would take over everything. "Kind of like you," my father said from his chair. I looked at him. He was watching the yard, not me, but there was something in his voice that wasn't criticism. My mother didn't bring up Marcus. She didn't bring up the list, or the room, or what I had or hadn't told them. We talked about my uncle's new retirement hobby, woodworking, apparently, with results ranging from charming to alarming, and the vine and the heat. Before I left, she walked me to my car. She stood with her hand on the doorframe while I started the engine. "You could have told us," she said. Quiet, not accusatory, just stating it. "I know," I said. "Next time I will." She looked at me for a long moment. I don't know what she saw. Whatever it was, she nodded once, like something had been decided. I backed out of the driveway. I merged onto the highway. I turned the air conditioning all the way up and drove north toward the city, toward the commercial property with its new tenant and its predictable monthly check, toward the life I had been building in the particular silence that had always suited me best. I didn't look in the rearview mirror, not because I was angry or cold or done with them, just because I already knew what was behind me. What I didn't know yet was everything still ahead. And that was the part, finally, that felt like mine. I still think about that casserole dish sometimes, the weight of it. How I drove 40 minutes to bring my mother her favorite meal and stood in her kitchen feeling like a child being graded on a test I hadn't known I was taking. What I've come to understand is that the people who underestimate us are rarely doing it out of cruelty. My mother wasn't lying when she said she was worried. She was telling the truth. Her truth, built from the information she had, filtered through the fear that loving someone and losing track of them produces. She looked at me and saw a 31-year-old woman paying rent in an expensive city, working long hours, coming home to an apartment alone. She filled in the blanks with the worst version of the story. The problem is, she never asked me to fill them in myself. That's the thing I had to sit with for a long time. Not anger at her. I moved past that somewhere on I-10, somewhere between Beaumont and Austin, somewhere around the third or fourth visit, where I chose silence over honesty because silence felt safer. The thing I had to sit with was my own role in it. I withheld the truth because I didn't trust them with it. And not trusting them meant I was carrying everything alone, which felt like strength at the time, and only later felt like what it actually was, exhausting. But here is what I know about how I was built. The parts of myself I'm most glad for. I know that doing right by the people you love, even when they've hurt you, even when they've underestimated you, matters more than being right. I apologized to my father for letting him worry 4 years longer than he needed to. I meant it. That apology cost me something real, and paying it was the correct thing to do, and both of those things were true at the same time. I also know that no amount of good intentions replaces clear thinking. My mother's love for me was never in question. What she lacked was accurate information, and I had deliberately kept it from her. Intelligence, the real kind, isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being honest enough with yourself to know what you actually know, what you're assuming, and what you've decided not to see. I had to apply that same standard to myself. I was right about the investment. I was not entirely right about how I handled the people around it. And then there's the third thing, the one that nobody talks about because it sounds too simple. You have to keep going when it's hard and boring and nobody is watching. Not for some future moment of vindication. Not so you can hand someone a closing statement and watch their expression change. Just because the work itself is worth doing. Because discipline practiced in private is the only kind that actually holds. The commercial property has a tenant now. The monthly check clears on the 1st. My mother called last week to tell me the vine is taking over the fence, which apparently is what it was supposed to do all along. Some things just need the right conditions and enough time.